We've had our fair share of Cinderella stories since Rocket League became an esport 4 years ago. Some were at least plausible, like IBP winning the first RLCS, and some were completely outlandish, like Team Echo Zulu qualifying for Day 3 at Dreamhack Leipzig. But the underdog stories that were more in the range of like mostly implausible to totally implausible, well, they've never ended the way everyone hoped. That is, until this past Sunday. Our story actually starts well before this tournament, well before Dreamhack Montreal, way back at the rlrs promotion tournament, where the Peeps, an orgless group of Rocket League players no different than many other rlrs and bubble teams, fought their way through rlrs league play to ultimately win the promotion tournament, guaranteeing themselves a spot in next season's RLCS.
And this is absolutely the best that I have seen them. They have stepped up to the plate when it matters most. When they know that a spot in the RLCS is on the line, they have answered that call. And with a 4-goal lead here in Game 6, make it 5, rlrs secures that spot from RLCS, and the Peeps have looked so good today.
So this team had in some ways done what so many teams want to do but couldn't. But qualifying for RLCS wasn't really the end goal. The Peeps really needed to prove themselves at this tournament and really show that they can hang with RLCS level teams. Now when you enter your team into a tournament like Dreamhack, you may look down the road at like your next few matches, telling yourself it's possible to beat whoever you're facing. But the farther you get into the tournament, the closer you get to those matches that nobody expects you to win. Whether you're going up against a team like Cloud9 or G2 or Vitality, you have to have something special to beat teams of this caliber, and even if you have it, you usually won't win. It's true that we often don't know just how good RLRS teams are because they haven't had much experience against these sort of like dynasty teams of Europe and North America. But historically, these teams have rarely even been able to take a game off teams like Cloud9, let alone win an entire series. The Peeps' first test during their run at Dreamhack Montreal came in the form of, well, Dignitas, the powerhouse RLCS team of Europe. The Peeps took the series all the way to Game 5, but even though Dignitas is a completely different roster at this point, they still seem to have that uncanny ability to hold leads. So once they went up 2 in the final game, the Peeps just couldn't get their aggressive offense going. But it turns out a loss early in the tournament was exactly what they needed to motivate them. So now the Peeps needed to take down Ground Zero Gaming, another RLCS team from OCE, which they did in just 4 games, qualifying for Day 2 and setting up a first match against G2. Each of the first 2 days of Dreamhack have an upper and lower bracket, so it wasn't essential to win this match versus G2, but all the same, how could the Peeps plan to have a chance in this tournament if they couldn't get at least some wins versus the best in the world? Like I said, the time is going to come where it's going to be do or die against a team with way more experience. That's just part of the Cinderella story. You either take down a giant or go home. Now this match didn't make it on stream, but G2 won in Game 5. So whatever happened in this match, the Peeps were now holding their own against the best teams in the world. But taking a series to Game 5 against G2 is very different than actually beating G2. But the lower bracket of Day 2 was no slouch either. They would have to take down both Ghost and TSM if they wanted a chance to win on Day 3. Again, their match versus Ghost didn't make it on the stream, but their 3-2 win was enough to make the final match of the day against TSM a sort of win or go home against a team consisting of players who'd been competing since the very beginning of RLCS at the very highest level. So the Peeps came out in Game 1, scoring the first goal with what would become a sort of trademark aggression. Bumps and demos were key for this team. The Peeps did something throughout this entire tournament better than I think I've ever seen another team do. They responded to virtually every goal scored on them. Like TSM would go up with seconds winding down and the Peeps would just force another goal. Even when Alpha scored like the juiciest flip reset of the entire tournament, they weren't phased at all and they just scored goals and, pulled out the wins that they needed without fail. The Peeps did what few underdogs do in these moments, at least in Rocket League. They kept aggressing and kept scoring. They didn't just get a lead and try to hold on to it for a few minutes. They literally smashed some of the best teams in the world. So this win over TSM on the main stage was the first public upset for the Peeps, and it set up the team for what would be a spectacular Day 3. The Peeps went into Day 3 with 3 matches in front of them, and the first being Mouse Esports. Now this is arguably the craziest match of the whole day. It was at least the most back and forth match. They came out strong, scoring 2 goals relatively early in the first game, but Mouse returned with a couple goals, and Mouse was actually up a goal with just 30 seconds left, but the Peeps tied it up and took it to overtime and won off a crazy flick off the backboard. Mouse took games 3 and 4 and were up a goal with about 3 minutes left when rlrs scored an equalizer off a bump from Gyro. I really thought that Mouse was going to pull out the win as they kept taking the lead over and over again, and time was winding down. The Peeps were down a goal with 30 seconds left, but there was no hint of giving up for this team.
Peeps do it again! Gyro! He has been a part of every play. This time faking that flick, gets back down on the ground and goes for the shot. A lot's been bamboozled. I'm ready for Mouse to score another one and then a 0 second, but maybe it'll be the Peeps. Great pass on the kickoff, 24 seconds, and now it's Mouse who need to find one. Again, Gyro, the great challenge for a miss, and Gyro sees Cookster in the wrong direction, passes it over to rlrs, and just 4 seconds later? 5? They're not done yet. Miss is just forcing an air dribble. He knows he can make any challenge he wants, and Cookster's so close. But the Peeps, a 2-goal swing in the final 30 seconds will knock off Mouse. The new generation is here, and what a statement to make.
The Peeps had shown that they could hang with anybody in this tournament, but now they were up against the reigning world champions in Renault Vitality, and Vitality wanted it probably more than anybody. KDOP has never won a Dreamhack title, and obviously this roster hasn't either. This was one of KDOP's last major accomplishments. Vitality looked like this series could be theirs as they won game 1 and then went into a long overtime in game 2. Even KDOP was going for flip resets. That's when you know you're in trouble, when KDOP starts going for flip resets. The Peeps ultimately won game 2, but lost game 3 to go down 2-1 in the series. But then the Peeps managed to win the next 3 games in a row to take the series 4-2 over the reigning world champions. This was the series where they showed not only that they could score goals and, break apart the best defense, but they could hold a lead and they could actually play defense themselves. Like, there was so many crazy saves in this series. Oh, and also, this is how the series came to an end.
Beat 2 players. rlrs needs a pass. Actually, how about a shot? Fairy Peak gets the nose on it, but not done yet. Still rolls up into the middle, and that is missed on target. You've got to be kidding! Who is writing this script? The Peeps at 0 seconds. They refuse to back down. Fairy Peak, you thought he had made the save. He launches it over the corner. The wall. Tough play for rlrs. Misses, and that's KDOP denied. Missed on the second chance. Corner, and that is out. How do the Peeps do it? Oh, tough ball. Oh, beautiful save from Fairy Peak. Scrub killer to continue. Gyro lifts one. KDOP can't reach it. The Peeps go to the grand finals. You cannot write a better script than this. The Peeps, an unsponsored team, a team coming out of the rival series against the defending world champions. They're losing in the final seconds. Time is off the clock, and they do the unthinkable.
But the Peeps still had their greatest challenge ahead of them. One more series versus arguably the best team in the world at this time, G2, a team that had just taken down NRG in an insane overtime. The Peeps weren't the only team with momentum. G2 had a lot of momentum at this point. G2 came out playing relatively passive, just sort of feeling out this team to see what they're capable of, until Rizzo decided to score a beautiful double touch with 1.5 minutes left in game 1, and then JNAP scored this nice little redirect. But rlrs responded immediately, and then he also tied it up with another bump goal. So G2 was actually down a goal as the clock winded down in game 1.
He's going to want to try and follow up. Yet another block. Is that going to be enough?
It's in the air. G2 need to carry it the full length of the field though, but in comes Miss. That's still going to be in the air for G2 though, if they can offload this. rlrs commits. It's Gyro 1v2. JNAP brings it down. Chicago in front of him. He's put it on target. That's an equalizer. The Peeps punished for overextending. Now, it's a wide open shot for JNAP, and that's the game. G2 punish the Peeps.
Heartbreaker.
At this point, the Peeps had given it everything they had. They'd returned every goal that G2 scored, but they just couldn't hold on to that lead. And honestly, G2 was playing the best Rocket League they've probably ever played. Game 2 went into overtime, but this time it went in the Peeps' favor. Now, long story short, the series went all the way to Game 7 because this is Rocket League and it just can't help but be like the most exciting esport in the world. And here's how Game 7 of the series went.
Only over the top, it's over! needs to pick it up. He needs to be that talisman he once was, and he's needed to get rid of that, because that could have been so very dangerous.
In the last game, it's the Beeps! Who are stepping up! And G2 look like they are completely rattled. They don't know what has just happened to them. They're asking, how are we in this position? And I think the Beeps are more than a bit surprised. What?
They just celebrated like they just won it. Another block from Mist, another huge win. They get it all the time. Mist to make it far. And he will do so.
This is not a dream. If you just tuned in, you are witnessing the biggest Cinderella story that we have ever seen. The Beeps have won Dreamhack Montreal.
Cinderella stories are rare in sports and esports because there's almost always a correlation between experience and talent and skill and then actually winning. But here's the thing most people may not realize. The Peeps didn't just somehow end up in this place. This is a team that's worked as hard as any other team. They've grinded their way through rlrs and countless other small tournaments. They've went through roster changes, some of their players turning down offers to go play for major orgs. The Peeps won this tournament not because of some fluke or accident. They didn't get lucky. Like, you can't get lucky every single series against the best teams in the world. At some point, luck's gonna fail you and you're gonna lose. They played Rocket League at the highest level, exactly how it's supposed to be played. Their actual playstyles were very similar to G2. Fast, lots of passing, and really almost no overcommitting, but still extremely aggressive. I really don't think that this is the last that we'll see of this team. They've won a major tournament, but now it's time to see what they can do in RLCS consistently up against the best teams in the world. Hopefully now some massive org will come in and buy them, like what happened with the Muffin Men at Dreamhack Atlanta. So if you're out there and you work for like FaZe or 100 Thieves or something, just go to whoever your superior is in the company and tell them to come watch this video. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Congrats to the Peeps for creating one of the coolest Rocket League stories so far. Good luck with RLCS. We'll be rooting for you. Alright guys, we'll see you next time. Peace out.